everyone. Thank you for joining us on Deciphering the Content. I'm going to step back in time because someone about, a few weeks ago sent me this transmission, this Andronicus transmission that I did in 2016. And it was May 19th, 2016, exactly 5 years ago. And they said, did you realize that there was a transmission in this Andronicus Transmissions where there were multiple transmissions? You could see there was Rhodan 23, Metis 19, Tectotron number 2, and Kraton number 3. And so during the transmission from Rhodan, there was a comment about something that regarding Aldeberan, and how that we should disconnect from Aldeberan, and there's going to be kind of a grace period for 5 years, and then today is the final day of that. And leading up to this, so this was given to me a couple weeks ago, and I was like, well, that's interesting, and I didn't think anything of it. And then some other things began to transpire, and so you can see here's the date, 5/19/2016. We, originally had them on Will Spirit Radio, so it was, we had to re-upload them, so you'll see a difference in the date here, but this is the original date when the transmission was uploaded. And I'm just going to show you, we used these, there was a deck of cards that I had that helped me to try to identify what some of these different individuals were that I was referring to. I did the best that I could in the process because people were trying to pretty much understand who and what they were. But anyhow, so there's a very, very distinct message from Rhodan, which we will post at the end of this for your review. And also another interesting message from Kraton, but also the explanation of it afterwards. And of course, JP did an excellent job in portraying these individuals as well. And his comments afterwards were quite interesting. So of course, this is my view of what's going on here, and I'm not saying this is anyone else's views, but I'm going to share with you some of the things that came out of this. So I'm going to start with this whole thing with Aldeberan, and if you go to my book, the Andronicus Transmissions, Contact Andromeda, which I just recently published. So here we talk about the Aldeberan, and they go to the planet Zephron, the blue planet Zephron. And, even while I was doing this transmission, I noticed I was saying this was happening on Sector 438, and it really wasn't. It was on planet Zephron. But what happens is, as a channeler and someone that does a lot of this work, sometimes you step in and out of reality and you get just interrupted, and there's a lot of data that's always coming through. So sometimes even with, things can be a little mixed up, but in actuality, when you look at the transmissions, all this is taking place on Zephron. All right, so on page 150, and this is Andronicus number 16. They talk about the eldest one is a female, and this is in reference to the Aldeberan. So I'll go back here. It is daybreak. I'm in front of the Council of Aldeberan. Others had arrived last night by spacecraft. I am clearly outnumbered. They have all the high elders awaiting my presence, and I have a protocol that I am not familiar with. I know that Sumeramis told me about the protocol of being a queen on Earth. This must be how they operate. A long line of events have already been planned. I don't know anything else but to tell them that they must leave. There is no purpose for their leadership to be here since it's already in our control. We are sending another Andromedan group to set up an outpost on Aldeberan to learn more about their society now that they have set up on Zephyron. We have the right to request the same. They seem to act as if they are not familiar with this guideline from source and how it is carried out by the Vegas. I shall see to it that they arrive there soon and cut off the controls that they are using on our planet. We hear the mind control facets within our brain and recognize them as identical to the Vincala control systems. I have corrected them and demanded that they discontinue using these frequencies on our planet. By the way, that's the same frequencies that we're having here on this planet. And he goes on to say, they continue to ask me about Sumer, when she left or where she went, and that's reference to me. And then he also goes on to say he needs help from the Vegas right now. And he also goes on further to say the eldest one is a female, quite strong, and has great telepathic abilities. She knows when I am not revealing everything. One of the Slitaran, Moloch, told her that she must leave. And yes, this is the same ancient Moloch that demanded worship on the planet. He is a Slitaran. And the Katronians, which are the Titans, are not tolerant at all. They don't like Aldeberan, and we have all decided to ignore them and return to our daily labors. Now we are less troublesome to one another and are more concerned about the volatile behavior of this Aldeberan ruler who goes by the name of Sharia. In some ways, this has helped the rest of us. The Vegas said we shouldn't worry, they will leave soon. Well, they not only leave, but they also take one of the vehicles. They cause a problem. They take one of the vehicles from the Titans, and so that forces the Titans then to travel with the Andromedans, which also, creates a lot of different types of problems. And that's how it goes. Now, do I believe all the Aldebaran are bad? This group in particular definitely has a problem, and it looks like they are in very, very far in our past, in other civilizations, and they've had a presence here. So what I realized is when I was sharing this information that Sharia was Maria Orsich. Now, a lot of people talk about Maria Orsich or Maria Orsich, and, they have, it's a lot of mystery about her, what she was able to do. I believe that she was definitely connected to the Aldebaran, and that's why she was able to speak with them. But I, too, was also connected to them, but she was definitely connected to this Sharia. Now, many people see her as looking much like this picture right here, this image. This is how I remember her. And I remember seated at a large table. We were having a meeting, and she would constantly come over to me and ask me what my information was and what I saw. She had me talk about it amongst the group at the table, and then she took the information and she left. And when she left, there was, she essentially, would take credit for the information that I gave her, although, she was communicating as well. But this is the way she looked. Now, I want you to notice the shape of her face is quite different from here. The forehead's different. Even like the eyebrows are different. The nose is much more narrow and the face is longer. This is what I think might have happened. I believe that this boy, this Prince Max Emanuel of Turin and Taxis, is the same as Maria Orsich, or she went and found another body, and however they do what they do, to me, it stood out to me that they were one and the same. I want you to notice the same type of nose, the lips, very much the same shape of the face, eyebrows, the eyes, the same type of look, even a very similar hairline. ears are different. But other than that, I mean, they do some very interesting things. And for me, this really stood out to me. So let's take a look at who this prince is. We're going to take a look at this prince. And so his name is Prince Max Emmanuel Maria Siegfried Joseph Antonius Ignatius Lamoro of Taxis. I believe it looks like he was born March 1902, prior to World War II, but they time travel, and he was from Bavaria, Germany. Remember, these entities, you know, even though Sharia was identified as a female, we don't, I mean, they're not necessarily human species. So was this a physical boy? Yes, it was. Was Maria Orsich also in physical form? Yes, but it's the energy that's moving through them, and then they take on different types of forms. Here's another picture too that I thought was really interesting. So here's a picture of who I was. I was Sigrun. Take a look at Maria. It really doesn't look quite like the picture that we looked at earlier, does it? This picture. Do you see? Shape of the face is different. Nose. Hair color is much darker. Just everything just looks, if anything, it almost looks like she's trying to look similar to me. It's the same kind of, and I don't know, the pose is similar. The hair color is similar. So there's definitely some tricky things going on here. And as I said, the one that I remember, I don't remember her looking like this either. So I don't know if they're trying to hide or how it worked. But like I said, this is the way I remember her looking, and originally, and then she changed, obviously, to have a more glamorous look, and they do that in very unusual ways. So I also thought about the name Sharia. So she was referred to as Sharia, like, I want to say, I don't know how many years ago, prior to the human existence, but you know, time space is something that the ancients are able to move through, and she was one of the ancients. And as I said, this is my information and what I've seen, but I have, and people may agree or disagree, and that's fine. I'm just presenting the realization and the connections that I have, and also my memory and recall. So Sharia is not necessarily a person here. It's related to the Islamic law and some of the restrictions or laws or guidelines, traditions, belief system, you know, coming from the Muslim faith. So, I mean, she is not, I'm not saying that she is Muhammad or of any leadership that was behind, but yet the similar name really stood out to me. And then I thought about, you know, the control systems, or the way that, you know, there's a certain type of protocol for the way people need, women in particular, need to be covered up. And it just, you know, I thought about what she was doing, and the system, how powerful this system is. And, you know, it's very ever present, and it seems to go toe to toe with Christianity and Judaism, and so, and it's very old, and it holds its own as far as having an influence on our planet. But I started thinking about something that came up in another session that I had with Jimmy, where I saw that Jimmy was married to a woman in Japan. And I realized that, you know, the same energy of Maria Orsich. And then I thought, well, let me take a look at this. And as from other research, I started to find some information here. These Japanese demons had come up in a previous session that I did, and I was looking at it. So here is this slit-mouthed woman, and it is an urban legend from 1979 that swept through Japan. Kuchisaki Onna wears a surgical mask. That immediately stood out to me. I was like, why? You know? And she asked children if they think that she is beautiful. If they say yes, she takes off the mask to reveal her mouth slit from ear to ear and asks the question again. The only way to escape is to give a non-committal answer such as, "You look okay." Barring that, you can just distract her with certain Japanese candies. But if the children say yes again, she will cut their mouths to make them look like her. So you're probably saying, well, why would you say that this is Maria? Well, I thought about the Sharia law and their need to cover up everything, and a lot of what we're going through right now, and the mask itself reminded me of something similar to that. And also, you know, preceding a lot of what was going on prior to the pandemic, the Joker came out. And here you see slit from side to side, which I always wondered, why do they have the Joker looking like that? The Joker didn't seem to look that much like that, you know, in the early Batman years, but I guess it did. And it's almost like, you know, trying to bring in this level of fear. You know, originally the Batman in our, you know, early on wasn't that scary, but, you know, once it got to Joaquin Phoenix's display, it became very disturbing. And, you know, I guess Heath Ledger as well, where it took a very, very dark turn. And kind of the rioting and all this other stuff, I know was a major influence. I know that we had this whole experience of, you know, the police were concerned that it was going to incite riots, which eventually it did. It actually did. And this is another thing, what I look at is the influence of the astro coming through, manifesting something, having their time. So this is like, as I said, it was probably about 4.5 years, maybe 4 years before when some of this stuff was happening. But here we are, you know, right on the date, 5 years from when Rhodan talked about it. This also then came up recently. I had a conversation with someone, and it was a private session, and we started talking about Archduke Franz Ferdinand. And what's interesting is this is a big event that happened, which brings us back to the Vril and some of the activities that were happening in the Germanic countries. And so we look at how the killing of Franz Ferdinand started off World War I, where he was assassinated in Sarajevo by a 19-year-old, a man by the name of Gavrilo Princip, who was a member of Young Bosnia. And his assassination led to the July crisis and precipitated Austria-Hungary's declaration of war against Serbia, which in turn triggered a series of events that eventually led to Austria-Hungary's allies and Serbian allies. So now I'm thinking, all right, so that's pretty interesting, because this really triggered so many things and introduced the First World War. I started looking at him and Gavrilo, and he did it because he felt like this is what he said, I am a Yugoslav nationalist aiming for the unification of the Yugoslavs, and I do not care what form of state, but it must be freed from Austria. Okay. So I started looking at him briefly, and then I went to some pictures and started to look at him, and I'm like, all right, this is what he looks like. And maybe, I don't know, maybe someone broke his nose, but then I see him here, and I'm like, well, that doesn't look like the same guy. The eyes seem closer set. The nose seems smaller. And maybe it's just a picture, but the mouth looks different. And it made me think that maybe he's a traveler too, if something's going on here. Was he sent in to initiate the war? Albert Pike's 1871 plan for the 3 world wars. Everything's right here. I'm going to have the links for you so you can take a look at it. And so, I mean, he pretty much lays out what was going on. So this is in 1871, prior to World War I. He envisioned 3 world wars to be followed by an unparalleled economic disaster. Pike's plans have come to fruition shockingly in Target, who is Pike, and perhaps more important, who backed Pike. I mean, we know it's pretty much the Illuminati, you know, and you read that they want to kind of create this thing, the Zionists and the leaders in the Islamic war. Here we're going back to the Maria Orsich Sharia law and Judaism or Zionism. And I start seeing all of these really interesting pieces, which I think people can take a look at. This kind of jumped out at me. Albert Pike in 1809 and 1891, a Jesuit of Newburyport, which is a town that I've lived in for quite a few years. But it's not in Arkansas, but in another place. But I just thought that stood out to me as well. And there's a reference to the Mafia, which we talked about as Mafia. There's the Masons. And there's a lot here. The Jesuits and so forth. And we'll have this document for you to read. There was, when I was looking at this information that happened with Archduke Franz Ferdinand, it brought up, you know, just following some of these links, and brought up the Black Hand. And so then you see the Black Hand, secret military society, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo through its connections. And it made me think about how, you know, humans, are they really making these decisions, or are they being manipulated to create crises and wars for other reasons? And I know many of you that are awake that have seen this pattern happening over and over again. You're probably saying, yeah, I mean, this is really obvious. I thought this was interesting how they have the jackets. This is a group of the Black Hand. So I started looking through this and found some interesting connections, and then I saw something about Alexander. And I'm saying, you know, he looks familiar. He reigned as king of Serbia from 1889 to 1903 when he met his wife Draga, and was assassinated by a group of Royal Serbian Army officers led by Captain Dragutin Dmitrijev. Okay, and here he is up here. So in 1901, a group of lower officers headed by this Captain Dragutin, and they called him Apis, established a conspiracy group called the Black Hand. So he's the one who established it. And this king got assassinated. And I thought, well, this is interesting. So I started looking at this king and this coup that happened. It's called The May Coup, published in 1903. Now, so I was actually researching this on the 9th of May, and I thought, well, that's weird. I'm looking at this in the 9th of May, and there was a reference, there was a date in here. Maybe I'm looking at something else. I believe it was the 9th of May, 1911. It was the unification of death. And I think that's the point where I was looking for. And so I was looking through all of this. And so then I thought I'd go back to Alexander the First. And then I thought, well, you know, I don't know. I heard the name Karl Lagerfeld. I looked it up, and I saw a picture of him when he was younger. And I started comparing it, and then I saw this. I said, they look pretty similar. And what's interesting is when I looked at the picture, I could only see this lens right here. And I thought, well, it almost looks like they're both wearing a monocle. And there was something familiar of what was going on here. And I was like, well, I wonder if this was, you know, Karl Lagerfeld moving through these bodies. And then, because Karl Lagerfeld, from my understanding, was a part of Aldeberan, and they have spoken about him on numerous occasions. He was, even though he's a fashion designer, he seemed to be very vocal when it came to the Yellow Vest movement recently before his death occurred, and you know, we talked about that a bit. So I think, let's see, the unification of death. I'm going to try to see if I can find that section. So it brings us back, right there it is. Founded in May 9th, 1911. That was the date that I was looking for. And I thought about 9/11. And I'm not saying that they're the cause of all of it, but like those that were using them, manipulating them because of feeling that their region was being, you know, in a position of fighting amongst each other. And of course, there are those that are greater in power, and they're manipulating from behind the scenes. But it was on May 9th that I did that private session. And so there was a lot of different things that were leading me to this, and this is why I'm bringing it in. I felt like it was important. So there was also something else that they talk about is the Apis, and that is Yeah, something, here it is. Dragutin is referred to as the Apis. And I found this, and I know there's something called Apophis. And Apophis is also known as Apep in ancient Greek. Is an Egyptian deity was who embodied chaos from Egypt and was thus the opponent of light in Mat. And he appears in the art of a giant serpent, and his name is reconstructed by the Egyptologists as Apep, and was written and survived later in the Coptic. Ra was the solar deity, bringer of light, and thus the upholder of Mat. Apep was viewed as the greatest enemy of Ra, and thus was given the title Enemy of Ra, and also the Lord of Chaos. Apep was seen as a giant snake or a serpent, leading to such titles as Serpent from the Nile and even Evil Dragon. Some elaborations say that he stretched 16 yards in length and had a head made of flint. Already on a nakata, a seaware bowl, a snake was painted on the inside and combined with other desert and aquatic animals as a possible enemy of the deity, possibly a solar deity who is invisibly hunting in a big rowing vessel. So while in most texts, Apep is described as a giant snake, he sometimes is depicted as a crocodile. So I think in the transmission and talking about what Rhodan said, what Kraton said, it made me see that this is kind of a galactic involvement, all coming together right around the time of the entry of a new age, which is not bringing the world together, but actually creating a massive war, and on a scale that we had never seen. And so World War I introduced that, and I know that we've had Alexander the Great, who actually, and the Roman Empire, that did a lot of damage to the many people during that time. Many civilizations were affected by that. This was much more violent and aggressive because of the level of technology and so forth, but also the introduction of these entities. In my opinion, this group from Aldeberan, and like I said, I'm not positive that all Aldeberan are fit in this category, but this group in particular has had a major influence on the planet, and also may have brought in other groups, such as this Apis or Apophis, Apep, whatever you want to call it. Here is something else that I found. There's Apophis is an asteroid, and people are also talking about this great asteroid going to hit the Earth. Now, I'm not necessarily saying this, but here it is, it's 99942 Apophis. It could be a 666, if you want to do the symbology. If you want to say this is an Illuminati thing, all of it kind of like coming together. And so possibly remain that during the 2029 close encounter with the Earth, Apophis would pass through a gravitational keyhole, a small region of more than about 800 meters, and would set up a future impact exactly 7 years later. On April 13th, 2036. This possibly kept it at a level 1 on the Torino impact hazard scale until August 2006, when probably the Apophis would pass through the keyhole, or determined to be very small, and the Apophis ratings on the Torino scale was lowered to 0. But I think the whole thing for me is just to point out that these are the topics, things that people are thinking about. And I guess there was a brief period of concern in December 2004 when initial observers indicated the probability of up to 2.7% percent that it would be hit Earth, and that's the date of 2029. I also want to bring up that I don't believe that Apophis is going to hit the Earth, but I just wanted to point some different things out that's in reference to that transmission that was done by the Andronicus Transmissions and Rhodan, Kraton, and we'll have the whole transmission there available for you to listen to if you haven't listened to it. And, you know, we've talked about the Vincala. I told everyone about the reptilians, and Andronicus referred to them as the Vincala. Here is what's called the Vinca culture, and look where it's at. Same place, right on Serbia. Reptilian-like? Some might disagree. They might say it looks more like a, I don't know, insectoid. But it does sound very similar to Vincala or Vinca. Vinca. Take a look at it. Strange ritualistic items found in this region in Serbia. It is 5,000 years old. This is a Serbian runner. This is interesting, and from Boston, in the Boston Marathon, probably. I don't know why that's there. Maybe he's the one that put this article together. Anyhow, yeah, there's the Viking culture. So another thing that came up just this morning, I had, and the reason why I pulled this all together and I brought in, other than the Sharia law and Maria Orsich being called Sharia, I had a dream this morning, and I literally saw Dionysus, who has aged tremendously, and then I saw Maria Orsich there by a spacecraft, and she was projecting something into my dream space, and I asked to have her removed. But anyhow, this happened today, and I thought I really need to, then I remembered I had to put this out because here again, today was the exact day when this all came together. And I want people to understand what the transmission means. It's disconnecting from the Aldeberan because they plan on doing something regarding this. And we don't want people entangled with something that they have no, you know, that they didn't actually contribute to this problem. But a lot of us were entangled for different reasons because of different lifetimes and alliances, and, you know, of course, they made themselves look very good as far as what they're bringing to the planet, so many of us have been tricked. Another thing that's been coming up, and this is, I promise you, the last part of this. I saw a woman that I was working with. I saw her embracing and holding or cradling a creature, probably in her mind. It was kind of like an astral aspect, or in maybe in the dream space, happening in the dream space, that she was cradling this creature that I couldn't quite figure out what it was. It sort of looked like what I would call a slug, or by the way that she was holding it, or, you know, a snail without a shell. It was black. And then I saw another woman today, and I had a discussion with her, and I saw her with a leash, walking with one of these creatures with a leash. And I'm like, what are they? And then it hit me. It was one of these stingrays or man rays or skates, whatever you want to call them. And she ended up, one of them ended up sending me this article of Thursday, May 13th of 2021. Hundreds of stingrays swim near Captiva Island. Because I started looking and I saw thousands of them that were sent here. Now let me explain what that means. And this is something that I saw years ago when I wrote the book, The Seer, Violets in the Grass, is that during the civilizations, different civilizations, whenever they wanted to destroy a civilization, the galactics would send this species that looked like these man rays or stingrays, you want to call them. But they were always black. And they would cover the sky. They would completely cover the sky so that no light could come in, and so that whatever being was there would be shut off from the light and brought into darkness, and then ending up not existing. And so I'm just going to share with you something that that I had seen. Because I believe that this happened in Neptune as well. On page 209, Kraton warns Andronicus that the black rays may return. Let me explain what this means. I have seen the demise of ancient civilizations by a species who look like amphibian creatures called black rays, man rays, or skates. They can appear like underwater bats, or another variation would be like black formless whales. As I mentioned in my previous book, The Seer, Violets in the Grass, in Balboa Press, page 142 to 143, and on pages 150 to 151. Here I refer to them as dark amphibians, Fomorians, an ancient species taking on different forms. The purpose for mentioning them is that I've seen them arrive when a civilization is going to be destroyed. They gather above the civilization and converge as a black sheet and obstruct all the light sources that cause everything to die. In my book, this takes place on Neptune and Lemuria, but creates a bleed-through reality on Earth. Today we have another variation. According to dailymail.com, August 13, 2019, the headlines, "Could dimming the sun save the Earth? Bill Gates wants us to spray millions of tons of dust into the stratosphere to stop global warming, but critics fear it would trigger calamity." Bill Gates has created a process to block the sun, or sun dimming. It is under the guise of assisting the planet. However, in my opinion, as well as others, we see this type of tampering with nature to be horrifically fatal to humanity and all living things. So is this also a part of, that's on page 209 on the Andronicus Transmissions, Contact Andromeda. And as I said, this reaction, this bleed through, or if you want to say this impact of influence coming from way back in time, from the planet of Zephyron or even before, but Andronicus had been sharing this story with me that the Aldeberan showed up in this this one planet where they terraformed and multiple species came together as an experience of how well they would get along, and in the end this group of Sharia's command from Aldeberan then created problems, stole a ship, and we see an array of different things happening throughout history, including this particular time that they were trying to show and direct me to is where some of the influence had arrived, in the series of wars, as well as a specific region where they targeted and used, manipulated, and then will continue going unless they're stopped. And so I'm asking for you to review some of this information, consider the effects and impacts on the earth. And this is not against the people, particularly the people are being used, manipulated, but the entities are very well aware of what they're doing here. And so disentangle, break ties, and please listen to the message from Rhodan. We're just going to play this afterwards, and we'll also have a message from Kraton if you want to listen to that as well. So thank you very much for listening, and have a good day.
I see you have heard from Kraton. I had to let him go and no longer constrain him from what he is allowed to do. I was deeply influenced by the Galactic Council, but now see that they were not reasonable in their assessments. After all, they barely understand the operation of the foundations and pillars as I do. During the process of discussion within the Council, I had discovered that many of them were entangled in various forms of corruption, manipulation of various societies and cultures. They were found empty or void of consciousness without any level of remorse. I have many prepared for trial. To my surprise, these wise ones had failed us. They ceased to have compassion and have more agendas of self-service than I imagined. Even worse, they had been setting up a private coalition with mutiny in mind. I was heavy at heart and burdened as any leader would be who sees that the very ones he trusted faithfully should have preferred to see me undone and torn asunder. I see my blindness and futile efforts to create these alliances. I knew they were contrary species and they really had no place amongst the gentle and more weaker species. Anu warned me not to make diverse coalitions long ago. He said that all would fail. I wanted to prove him wrong. This is the reason why he always flies solo. I see the wisdom in that now. Some of the species have learned from this process. The good that came from it is that the more gentler species were able to observe the more aggressive and contrary species by examining their behaviors. They can now feel more confident and better arm themselves in defense when they are home on their planets. I let go of Kraton. Not that I could ever hold him down. But I knew he would listen to you. He has a weak spot for you. However, I don't want this to backfire, and I decided to step away from what they needed to do to regain order on the planet. It will just reset the planet back to the original foundations that provided a basis for healing and allows balance and harmony to exist. At the current status, harmony is impossible to achieve because balance is not in order. Only a part or a portion of the foundations are currently active. The ocean floors are clearing intersecting dimensions of Neptune and other regions. This is now disallowed indefinitely. Another reason why Kraton is enraged. He will see the reason for this in time. Keep far from his view and continue on with your work. I heard from Andronicus. He is on the other side of the universe and working very closely with the new species entering through our gateway. The Black Emeralds are assisting him, and he is finding his place more as a leader rather than engaging and being manipulated by Aldeberan. Kraton will be removing Aldeberan once and for all. This is the poison in the elixir. You carried much of it when you incarnated in this lifetime, and much of it needed to be removed from you. We are sorry that it caused you great pain. In the end, those who carry the toxic elixir of Aldeberan will suffer a great deal. Now is the time to allow us to remove it. You are still in a mode of free will. You must request the removal of it. If you do not voluntarily remove it from you and all connections to Aldeberan, you will feel a tremendous tearing in your solar plexus that will affect your soul space. I may remind you again, do not have any alliance with Aldeberan because they are being rooted out of reality. This will prevent you from having a great deal of pain if you allow the access and removal of this energy. It will be an energetic extraction, nothing that requires surgery or intrusion. There will be a 5-year grace period, with today being May 19th, 2016. This information will be spread across the planet by this time, and all will know about the agreement and be able to consciously make the decision. Some of you have been feeling this for a long time and have been ready for the extraction. Request the removal in the here and now to alleviate any further pain.
Immediately upon hearing the suggestion, I requested the extraction to be done right away. I saw a layer buried deep in my etheric body, an aspect of myself where I was an Aldeberanian priestess. Then I beheld 4 lifetimes on planet Earth and 1 on Mars, where I was a priestess to their kingdom. One of the lifetimes where they had full control over my thought process was when I was abducted by the Vinkala as Ishtar, and then they controlled my thinking and inserted the programming where I was reinserted as Semiramis. This is when I introduced the poison of Aldeberan on the planet. I felt ashamed and remorseful. Now I understand why all my communication has been uncomfortable with so many of the beings who have contacted me. They had perceived me as an Aldeberanian agent. I don't blame them for their apprehension and even hostility. In their opinion or perspective, I would be as a traitor and a manipulator, something that does not coincide with my true nature. Then I observed the Emerthers looking upon me with a peaceful appearance. They helped me through the process. They said, "You will be fine now. The nightmare is over. Never again will you be associated with the poison." A river then flowed from me like a mighty rushing flood. All the waters flowed past me. I was no longer the dam that kept the water table full and obstructed. Whether this was figuratively displayed or literal, I could not tell. Then a fire rose up from the earth, and a mighty wind emerged. All elements converged to display a balance. It was a corruption not heard of. An innocent lost and then found. A deception at the garden, then corrected. We can now be in solace, peaceful, surrendered to the healing of the earth's elements, and compassionate, wise teachers from the ancient of old.
There, my work with you is finally done. We will do the unraveling now. You see, it had to be you to bring all of this forward. No one had the most crucial key to humanity's suffering. As you understand, you were just used by their system to create disharmony with our foundations of the universe. You were also very entangled with them throughout the entire process. You became the untamed rebel, refusing to be owned or controlled, and thus not very different from the ancients. Not capable of being bound like Kraton. Not dissimilar to Andronicus, who can't be held in one place. It is a rebelliousness to some, but a required freedom in actuality. I'm smiling to see the art of survival so instilled in your soul. You are a rebellious bird, if ever there was one, but never meaning to harm others with intent. only fighting diligently to float above the ethers where you feel the wind against your face. I thought the motorcycle reference would remind you. Be gone now and be free. Watch who you become strange bedfellows with in the future. My beloved family is returning to me, and I'm elated with joy. Primus, though your wings are heavy, they shall grow lighter as the foundations and the firmament run free. You are entangled with your brethren. Be patient and continue to listen to me speak in your ears. Freedom.
I am here to warn you again. The borders have been crossed, and there are problems from my perspective. You are about to be cleared from my view, as I am becoming aware that others are entering in who have chosen to contend with me. My voice is low and transparent, but my bite is as a scorpion, and I will come in as a thief in the night for those who claim my region for their own. I have taken hold of the foundations long ago. This will not subside until my requests have been made. Rhodan no longer holds me in his grasp. He must take my requests and fulfill my wishes. A part of humanity belongs to me by their choice. It was the original agreement. It is according to their free will. A part of the inner and hollow earth beings are also in agreement to my service. They also will reside within my domain upon the planet Earth and surrounding planets of my domain. I shall not waver with my stance. You, Sumer, shall be submissive to my requests until you have completed your role as my liaison. This is what I had requested from Rhodan as part of my agreement. Your life is not your own until this matter is fulfilled. My promise to you is that I do not declare ownership upon you. I merely need you to fulfill and convey my requests upon the planet's authority, to make my request and demands known to all species who have visited or claim to have residency upon Earth and various other regions. Sumer, I will warn you, there are others who would like to claim ownership over you because of your broadcasting ability and ancient reach both into the past and into the future events. Despite your reach into these existences, you do not have full persuasion into future events. That is for the powers to determine. Primus maintains the other spectrum of broadcasting, reaching to other existences not familiar to you. The conversion of both allows a full range of radiating projections into all manner of species across the universe. All are observing now. This is the pinnacle of events that are continuing to be established. The Vikings arise to question all things. They are the discriminate observers. They will peel away all illusion to get to the heart of all matters. I have them as my record holders. Kraton was warning you through his verbal content. Read between his words and you will hear the thunder of his tone. This is where the anomaly is revealed. They are my alarm system that something is not quartered and divided to the exactitude of perception. They speak in apparent generalities, but it is a thunderous point that shakes the foundations. The alarm is being set, and we are closely observing the potential perpetrators. There are those who remain in our camp, who have been found as our traitors, minions without a ship. They shall fall, they shall surrender, they shall be brought to nothing. Each and every one of us hears the thunder. Kraton roams throughout the waters with his mighty vessel, collecting all intruders within the depths of the waters, including those species hiding from exposure of the light upon them, which would reveal their betrayal of all living things. These are our foundations. We are the gatekeepers of the sacred floors of earth and dimensions. None shall get past us. We have locked everyone in until we root out the betrayers. One does not need to know what happens to them. Be not amongst them when they are found out. As for you, though you have found amnesty from others' accusations such as we will not hear or consider on any level, because they are the visitors here, not you. You belong here. There is nothing to worry about. Off-planet politics don't hold any weight within our jurisdiction. They can scream and moan and accuse and challenge our decisions, but we hold to protecting our own and our land rights to all that is ours. We mock their accusations with the crumbling of their realities. The more they intrude upon us, the less space they will exist in, until all factions awaken with multiple species fighting over their space. At that time, they will realize what it feels to be heavily intruded upon. Their access to this planet was never allowed. Had it not been for our time of stasis, none of this would have happened. Rhodan trusted many of your kingdoms to come in a benevolent manner, in good faith, to help the growth and evolution of the planet. Instead, you asserted yourself as the Earth Mother, claimed jurisdiction, and imparted your beliefs, illicit behaviors, and exploitation of less informed species, including humankind. I will not hold court for Rhodan to conduct. I am less considerate of your galactic rights, and do waiver any protocol required as it does not apply to me. I was here first. I was the foundation. The foundation has no other cause than to maintain the foundation, and thus it is so. Let anyone challenge this decree. Sooner, you have another opportunity to diminish the destruction and calamity of planetary events. So hear me now. We shall see if you remember, because your memory allows you to see that you are as you say you are. Tell me, who hid in the chambers of the caverns in Turkey to bring forth judgment?
It was Mars. He told me that the Earth was in trouble for intruding upon his planet without his permission, that we, the humans, through space programs, have been unlawfully entering his space and altering it, harming some of his inhabitants. He was very angry and upset. He also went on to say that by them doing that, he had the right to take control of part of the planet, part of the Earth. And so he decided to take control of part of this planet.
That's correct. He would only speak with you about it. He refused to talk to anyone else who is not connected to him. Mars trusts no one. This is the reason why he still exists. What did you tell him?
I just listened to him and could see he was very upset on a level that was very dangerous for others. I tried to just be there for him and help him release his anger through his words. He barely said very much verbally, but I could see it in his eyes. The anger, the frustration, the experience of theft and intrusion. I don't know. What more could I say? The problem is that I don't even have access to the humans who are conducting these missions. I don't know what to say to him, but to try to comfort him and ask him. And that he doesn't harm any of the innocent in the process. I really don't want anyone to be hurt.
What did he do to respond to that?
I think he just pulled away. I mean, he didn't argue with me, he didn't say a whole lot. He acknowledged what I said and then seemed to hold his ground. I don't know, I'm not sure.
He is still there waiting to hear from you again. Speak to him. He will have more to say to you.
I promise I'll do that.
I spoke also to Kraton. He was displeased with you. He said you argued with him, and he said you were disrespectful to him.
Well, that's true. He violated my space, and I reacted to it.
He wanted you to be more controlled and without any type of freedom. He thinks you should not be handling things the way that you do. I told him that I will make the decisions and he will not. You can be grateful that he is not in charge. He does not hold you in high esteem, despite your many efforts to assist him. I agree with you. He may have been tempted by the visitors in forms of manipulation. He has been away for too long. I am allowing Kraton to speak with him so he can help find him a place of understanding and remembering our old ways. I love them both. They are as my sons. When Kraton breaks through the rusty anchor, he will find pure silver. The core of Kraton will be revealed. The barnacles of opposition, manipulation, and illusions from Neptune, from the curse of Zamphar, will be peeled away, and we will regain our brethren again, and free from the controls of Zamphar. He has altered our reality, and made some of us frustrated and confused. Kraton was deeply humiliated by Metis, amongst others. You can imagine his pain and humiliation. I told him he would present Metis before Rhodan, and he would have to make concessions for what he had done by betraying his own people as well as ours. This was not anticipated, but we had discovered the least likely to cause problems ended up being the most problematic in the end. Metis was one of them, Hera was another, and finally Athena, all creating tremendous amounts of damage because of their insatiable need for power. There is also the topic of ancient Gobin, who burrowed himself deep into the planet and claimed to be the Earth's mother. Some may have been communicating with them. You found him and pulled him out and presented him to us. It was projecting off-planet agendas to humankind and altering their destiny. This was not your problem, but to leave it the constant bantering we dealt with and grew accustomed to. Here is another reason why you will be helped.
I'm very glad that I was able to assist in that area. I could see that he was very negative in influencing the planet. So it was a good thing that we were able to pull him out.
You discovered the darkness in Agartha, a select group, though small, which went rogue and were utilizing authority to plant anarchy on the planet. Very good. Do you remember your find in Antarctica? It is recognized and observed.
Thank you, Kraton.
There is an intrusion and extraction that is now being acknowledged about the Aldeberanians. Their long-lasting intrusion is prominent in every civilization since the beginning of time. They were very ancient and corrupted from long ago. Because of their wisdom, garnished with manipulation, it is easy to be drawn in by their corruption. One can never know how crafty and subtle they can be. It has been a long history of their poison, and it is a string that links the beginnings with eternity. It is a fly in the ointment. One can barely see a space that has not been tainted by their corruption. It sickens me how I was riddled with their foul scent of vulgar, crude imaginations. I shall tear them from their roots and disintegrate them into a foul vapor, and allow the allies of this corrupt bunch to inhale their fumes for eternity. And thus it is so. You have helped us extract them because of the high levels of envy towards you. I will continue to follow your thread of entanglement with them until it is finished. Nothing can interfere with this operation moving forward. We have identified and closed all the entry gates of particular disruptions. One other thing. No one else goes through the wall of fire unless I tell you otherwise. I will ensure that there is no deception and manipulation involved. Metis almost found a way around it. I will leave assistance to help support your work. Until next time, Kraton.
I